Today I just want to talk a little bit about Bitcoin as an investment. So the thing that a lot of stock market investors, and specifically value investors, have as far as a problem with Bitcoin is that there's no intrinsic value. So if we look back at the original definition of intrinsic value as defined in The Theory of Investment Value by John Burr Williams, which is a book on investing, we go over how intrinsic value is the cash inflows and outflows produced by an asset over time, and each of those individual cash flows being discounted back to present. So this is basically the reverse of applying an interest rate to an amount of money. So if you look at, say, $100 of cash flow, if that is produced, or say if $110 of cash flow is produced next year, a 10% discount rate on that is $100 today. So that $110 tomorrow or next year is worth $100 today. What you're doing with intrinsic value is you're looking at all future cash flows and discounting those back to present to come back to your, basically your yield and your rate of return. So with Bitcoin, there's nothing that's actually being produced. It's really an unproductive asset. You can hold it, you can own it, there could be a price attached to it and therefore a market value, but there's no actual intrinsic value. So that's the big thing that investors have a problem with, at least as far as like value investors and stock market investors. So how Bitcoin really gets its market value, you could say, is it's all just based off supply and demand. So every time a new problem, I'm not going to go super deep into this, but basically every time a new problem is solved to record different transactions and mint new Bitcoin and mine new Bitcoin. I totally just lost my train of thought there. Basically, every time Bitcoin is minted, a certain problem is going to be solved, and then new Bitcoins will be minted. Now, over time, obviously, that means supply is going to grow as far as the amount of Bitcoin available in circulation. And if demand keeps going up higher than the supply that's being provided, that means the price is going to go up. Now, say more supply is added to the system and demand drops, that means there's more supply and there's less demand, and that is going to cause prices to drop down. So really, the big drivers of Bitcoin, and you can kind of think of it as somewhat of a commodity, just because one thing is just like the other. All Bitcoins are, you can tell I'm not super versed on this, but in general, every Bitcoin is the same as every other Bitcoin. They all have the same market value and they're basically commodities. So I just kind of wanted to riff on the fact that a lot of people invest in Bitcoin. It's driven by supply and demand. However, there is no intrinsic value. So that's something that I kind of struggle with as far as considering investing in it. Currently, I have not. I'm a little interested in taking a nibble at it just in case things go well. As we know over history, or at least the history of Bitcoin, it has done very well as an asset. But again, it's not a productive asset. So those are just kind of some thoughts that I have on Bitcoin. A little interested. Don't like that there's no intrinsic value. I can't calculate what it's worth to me as far as rate of return and future cash flows. And hopefully that wasn't too much of a ramble. Anyway, thanks guys.